So who's in the chair when you're writing like this most recent book? Who are you writing to?
I guess usually I picture someone who, like me, understands a before and an after. Like they were wearing a sweater and someone pulled a thread and all of a sudden they weren't wearing a sweater anymore. And it doesn't have to be as apocalyptic as like a stage 4 cancer diagnosis. I imagine them with a relationship that ended, or a miscarriage, or a parent who they're caring for, but something that teaches them that life is delicate. And so that person I find very easy to love. And I guess I love what you just said about you're not trying to educate. You want like you seem to me, based on all the reading I've done of yours, is that your main mission is like a big, generous hospitality. Does that inform like the adjectives you choose even?
Yeah, maybe not just to invite people, because I've got invited plenty of places that I wasn't welcome when I got there. Like, oh my gosh. Yeah. But to actually welcome people instead of invite them. So let people the premise is that we're friends. The premise is that we can talk plainly with one another, and that we're not going to use 20-pound words to describe really accessible feelings. So it's not dumbing it down. It's actually would be so intelligent that we would use really practical words to get there. So I think that's the person I have in mind. And I think for people that listen to the podcast, they're wondering, like, they'll read your words, and we encourage people to pick up the book, make your way through it. Kate will blow your doors off. But as you're reading these words, say, how would I then respond to that? How do you, when you're writing, give people, if you're writing about very difficult things, I think of it as a way to give people an opportunity to breathe, because if they have, encounter like a really serious cancer diagnosis and some of the things that you have to tell, because these are true and they then provoke some deep thoughts about that. How do you give your reader an opportunity to take a breath in the intensity of that?
Yeah, when you're describing your ideal or the reader you imagine, I always pick 3 adjectives. So I think of their life circumstance. So I think of that person and their age. And I usually think about their mom, right? Like their parent as a secondary reader, because that's usually, it's the person who has gone through it, and the person who loves them is usually my person. But I usually think of like, what are they like? And usually I pick 3 adjectives. And I think everyone kind of has that when they're picking their tone. And I always pick kind. Like I want someone who they want me to be like, which is how I talk. Oh, hello, my dear. We're like, that's okay. And they're like, oh, informal, terrible. But kind, smart, because I love a little, they'll tolerate some, like, it was the late 19th century for me, because that's my background. And funny, which is like, they have to be comfortable with a certain degree of sarcasm, or else that, and which is my balancing effect of like, hey, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, but I can't say the hard thing in my situation unless I simultaneously tell you how hilarious it was.
Oh, you do that so well. There's this one moment in Everything Happens for a Reason that I'm thinking of. You and your dad are kind of going through, you wrote something for the New York Times that ended up blowing up, and a gazillion people wrote you letters and emails, and you were reading one of these really hard emails, and you're with your dad in the room, and you say you had this moment where you were kind of connecting on that. And in your head, you thought the silence meant you were silently loving each other. And your dad says, yeah, well, Mozart, he also died young. And so you're like after this moment. But the reason that it's timed so well in the writing, because just as Bob said, when you say, can we just go back to silently loving each other? That's a moment in the narrative where, if I enter too far into all of the hard, I'm going to shut the book. I can't, life is hard. And so this is not only a coping skill, but a writing skill for all of our listeners who are facing these hard things they're writing about. Humor in a brief moment, or what Bob says, taking a breath, that is a gift to your reader, because you think it will make ripples. Actually, it just helps the reader stay